For a good, diligent practitioner, we're always on retreat. We don't attend a retreat. We don't go to a retreat. We don't do a 10-day, 5-day, 3-day, 2-day, 1 month, or etc. retreats. For a true practitioner of this Dhamma and discipline in this asana, the goal is to have every day be a retreat day. So there's no separation between your life and living a meditative life. This is crucial to understand and to truly appreciate. This is where that rope that will pull your life into a meditative life happens to be the sense of urgency, samvega, which is lacking. But we all have to start somewhere. We all have to have a beginning from a point in our lives and in coming to the Dhamma. Sometimes it takes decades for us to truly appreciate the value and importance of samvega, the sense of urgency. And usually it will come in the form of, or instigated by, a major havoc, a major shocking event in our lives. Death, or the menacing presence of, or the possibility of death looming, does the job of bringing up a sense of samvega in us. But samvega, the sense of urgency, is not something horrid, something terrible, something that is very, macabre, or something that's dark. It's a blessing. Because it forces us to look at life with more eagerness, to taste it fully. Taste it fully, to be present fully. To not live life by taking it or certain aspects of it for granted. It involves responsibility. Responsibility of every breath we take, every step with which we move forward in life. Every time you're washing your hands, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, thinking even, having a certain position towards something. All these can pull us into the Maya, into the delusion, which we call our normal, conventional world, our life. So, can we bring that sense of being on retreat into every single frame of your day? Waking hour. Can we do that? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. And that is the goal. So it's important for us not to look at meditation or going on retreats as something that is, yes, I'm doing that and it's done. So it's not like It's not like that. You cannot compartmentalize meditation. Put it there somewhere. It's not an insurance policy either. It is the way you live your life. So turn your life into retreats, into a retreat, an ongoing retreat, with less gaps in between. Can we do that? If you can, then you are actually working towards winning the stream, becoming a stream winner, a sotapanna, at the very least. Because you are giving the Dhamma its due respect. And life becomes much more juicy. Your words become more truthful. Your words, your feelings towards or about statements you're about to make, feelings become pure. And that is why we practice Mettā. There's a term in Pali, it's called parisuddhiya, parisuddhi. And that is purity, purification. We're constantly going through the three trainings for the sake of purifying ourselves. Through Sila, which is the virtuous living, using wise moral shame, which is hiri, and ottappa, which is wise moral fear. One is the shame that we would have for doing or thinking something without anyone else knowing. It is wise. It is something that it involves us looking at ourselves. Why am I doing this? What is this doing to me? Oftentimes our thoughts or words, our actions even, are on automatic pilot. We're just based on sankharas and habitual tendencies, again and again, repeating themselves. Putting ourselves further, digging ourselves down into the mud of akusala lifestyle, unwholesome lifestyle, and having to deal with the consequences. So having hiri, or that wise moral shame, will stop you in your tracks towards yourself. Why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? And then ottappa is, how will my teachers and those whom I truly respect view this thought I am having, this statement I'm saying about myself or others, or this action I'm committing? What if the Buddha was there, or the teacher or a teacher whom I respect was there, completely, fully aware of what I'm about to do or doing? Would I still do it? Ottappa would stop you immediately. As we do this, this is at the core of Sila, by the way. This is what needs to be happening, not just the outside appearance of keeping Sila, not to kill, not to take anything that's not given, not to engage in sexual misbehavior, misconduct, not telling lies or engaging in intoxicants. All these, they're important, but they're on the outside. What's happening on the inside? Hiri and ottappa, are they there? And if they are, guess what? You are practicing parisuddhi. You're practicing purity, which leads the way to cultivating the mind. And when you're cultivating the mind, your practice goes deeper and deeper and deeper. Whether you're practicing breath meditation, anapana, whether you're practicing maranasati or the contemplation on death, or the repulsive, looking and finding the repulsive in what looks pleasing. So you're breaking through the facade. You're seeing anicca the way it is. Or when you're practicing metta, which again brings us back to the feeling aspect of our existence, which, by the way, everything revolves around. We start from feeling for a reason. Because Lord Buddha taught the Brahma Viharas, the 4 divine abidings, or the states of divinity, if you want to call it that. Metta, universal, benevolent, loving kindness. Karuna, compassion. Mudita, that altruistic, sympathetic, spiritual joy, where someone else's joy is the same as yours. And then upekkha, the equanimity. These work and flow into and through each other. They support each other. There's a reason why we teach Mettā. Because it connects all of the aspects of our living experience in such a way where we could even attain Nibbana. Sometimes it's a sad reality to come across meditators who, or teachers of meditation. In this day and age, we have that, where there's a lot of mention that, well, Lord Buddha attained arahantship through anapana. That is true. In fact, we know from the suttas how all the Buddhas, in order for them to become Buddhas, they must be practicing, and that when they've gone through their trials and tribulations, and then finally sat to meditate to attain full Nibbana, final Nibbana, they all practiced anapana, the breath meditation, observation of the breath. That is a fact, that we see this in the suttas, so no questions about that. However, the problem is we are not Buddhas to be. We are not of that level of accomplishment or achievement. This is where people get it terribly wrong when they drop metta and go into anapana and say, well, if it worked for Lord Buddha, it should work for me. Yes, but Lord Buddha also had completed his paramis, his perfections. How are your paramis coming, by the way? What is the level of your patience? The level of your determination, perseverance, your adhitthana? How about your generosity? Is it beyond measure? How about your metta? Lord Buddha's metta had reached completion. It was fulfilled. Most people forget this. They ignore this. And they think it is simply a quicker path to awakening. So they drop the Brahma Viharas, which is sad and ironic, because in the suttas we see countless times Lord Buddha mentioning the importance of practicing the Brahma Viharas. Many people highlight or point out the Kalama Sutta, the sutta that is well known, and many people have so-called become Buddhists because of the Kalama Sutta, because in it Lord Buddha says, in a very scrutinizing way, which was his style. That no one should follow a teacher simply because of the amount of followers they have, or how eloquent they, speak, how logical their statements might come across, who their teachers were, etc., etc. Instead, he says how one should see if it makes sense to them, if it rings true, if it sounds reasonable, for them to go ahead and practice it. And then if they really are benefiting from it, then go ahead and continue practicing. That was roughly what the message was to the Kalama, the people of Kalama, the town of Kalama. But within the sutta, at the end of it, actually halfway through the sutta, Lord Buddha opens up the Brahma Viharas. He talks about the importance of the Brahma Viharas to this very highly intellectual, logical, reasonable people of Kalama. And this is a problem we have. We have a lot of logical people today. Well, maybe not as much as we had in the previous generation, but given what we're seeing, the unquestioning obedience that we see from so many billions of people. Nevertheless, we like to think a lot. Think a lot. We like to judge a lot. Having the Brahma Viharas beating in your heart stops you from doing those things. The judging attitude, at least towards yourself, starts to die down. So many people who come to the Dhamma wanting to practice, there's so much anger, resentment towards themselves, first and foremost, to the point where I have to encourage them to practice forgiveness alongside practicing Mettā. But even the spiritual friend, I won't bring it in, because it is more crucial for them to experience Mettā towards every part of their body, their heart, their mind, their past, and the constant barrage of negative, traumatic memories that keep creeping into their sit. To be able to forgive that. So this is where it changes. The Brahma Viharas, the way we have from Lord Buddha, have to have within them the Satipatthana. This is not bhakti yoga. This is not some Sufi practice. Trance-like, whirling dervishes, just go into that exceedingly highly emotionally charged trance, which you also see in Christianity, in other religions around the world. That is not Mettā. This is where many people, especially Buddhists, get it wrong. Especially those who, for some time, they say, I'm going to be practicing Mettā. They completely miss the point. They completely miss the technique itself, because it needs to have the 4 right efforts within it. The 2 of which deal with the akusala, or the unwholesome, and 2 of which, the 3rd and 4th aspects of right effort, have to deal with bringing up the wholesome. But sati has to be there. So you're seeing what happened before. You're seeing what is happening now. You're seeing what is going to happen. So you're observing what is taking place constantly. It is not just being lost in some emotionality, in some high-pitched emotional state where you get fuzzy all over or you start crying. These things do happen, yes, but they are not the crux of the practice. In the breath meditation, we see how Lord Buddha talks about observing the breath coming in and going out We do not follow the breath into the body. We never do that. Unfortunately, there are still teachers who teach it like that. We're observing the walk. Every time you step forward in time and space, we're observing how each of the junction points take place. For example, when you're sitting and then you decide to get up, that's a junction point. You're about to stand from the position of being seated. So there's a transition point, there's a junction point, or gradient, if you will. Those are valuable moments of maintaining sati. So when you're practicing the Brahma Viharas, in this case, Mettā, you're observing the mind by first feeling it in your body. If it's not there, you're observant, you're aware that I don't have Metta. First and foremost, before I send it to my spiritual friend or to you or to my enemy, which comes far later, by the way, never happens in the same sit or when the person is just starting on feeling Metta, to feel the texture of Metta. So the teacher bears the responsibility of slowly guiding, step by step, the student into feeling comfortable, and there's enough equanimity, and there's a lot of Metta for them to be unshaken when they do see the enemy, before they even radiate the Metta. So that's also a major stumbling block of and one of the mistaken ways of doing Metta, which I still see meditation teachers instructing their students in. So you see, so many intricacies are involved in the practice of Metta. So as the person is moving in time and space, they are maintaining sati. And similarly with feeling. What is the feeling? Because even when you're practicing Metta, the feeling changes. It doesn't stay the same all the time. The hindrances will come. That's why the Dhammanupassana come in. The Chittanupassana come in. Earlier I was talking about the Satipatthana being this, like this with Metta. They're one and the same in essence. You cannot have Metta working without the Satipatthana. So the Dhammanupassana, which is the observation of the different mental states, but specifically the phenomena, the relationships between phenomena, whether it's the Four Noble Truths, seeing anicca, the characteristics of existence, or in this case, observing that there's a hindrance that stole my attention away from radiating that loving kindness to myself or to my friend. What happened there? There was a drop. I had to relinquish my object of meditation. Just like when you relinquish your object of meditation, meaning when you're doing anapana with the breath. There's no difference. Because sati had to be dropped. Because the mind was simply bored. You had to pick up something else. Instead, something more interesting, maybe a memory, which is never going to just stay a memory because it's now turned into a story. Manjana, imaginings, and then you have papanjas, proliferations of ideas, and more concepts coming in. But just like in the case of the junction points, your sati has to be there. Similarly with the Brahma Viharas, you're going to see, oh, there you are. My attention, softly bring it back, slide it back into the object of meditation. But we do that with the relaxation, the calming, the opening attitude, which is the wholesome part of the right effort, which I mentioned. And the more you do this, the more you protect yourself, the more you maintain that wholesome approach, the softness, maintaining metta towards yourself, and having patience towards yourself every time the mind drifts away because of your lack of, interest in the object, which is metta. So when we look at this, we see clearly, you see that it is not some simplistic, some easy to follow instructions like, may I be happy, may I be happy, may you be happy, that kind of a list of almost prompts. That's not metta. That is not metta. Yes, in the suttas we see them listed in a similar fashion, but unfortunately with the suttas, we don't have the contextual elements involved. We don't have, within parentheses, the reciters of the sutta saying, now make sure you embody that feeling first before you send it out to someone else. We don't have that luxury. That's why we need to use common sense and practice. And exactly, we have to go back to Lord Buddha's example. He was the embodiment of metta, as well as karuna. He was known as Mahakaruna himself, the great compassion. And he had mudita. There was no walls of separation between himself and others when it came to feeling what others were feeling, understanding. That's why he was able to know someone else's heart, what their true intentions were. But above all, he had equanimity. That's why he was not shaken when someone would come and insult him with, some critiques of things that they didn't like Lord Buddha to be doing, teaching the Dhamma to people that was changing their lives. His mind was intact. His mind was still. That comes from upekkha. The fastest way that you could taste Nibbana in this time period is the practice of Brahma Viharas. Okay? Unless you've really come close to attaining Sotapatti, and now it so happens that you recall those states, you might be like Venerable Bahiya. You're just waiting for that nudge. And you might be practicing Anapana, and all of a sudden, you might experience Sotapatti. Wonderful when that happens. But for the majority of us, that is not the case. Is there enough metta, loving kindness in your heart towards yourself? When you wake up in the morning, is there a gratitude for yourself first and for the effort that you're putting in every day? So, I encourage you to take another look and look at this practice, not as something that you can squeeze in during the day before your bedtime or early in the morning. And that's that. We can just drop the ball afterwards. But instead to treat your day as an ongoing retreat. That doesn't mean you need to maintain silence, especially if you're a layperson, needs to work with people, get on the phone and emails, this and that. No, we have to be reasonable and use common sense, of course. But in the midst of all that commotion, you can still inculcate, bring into your day the sense of upekkha, which is the sense of equanimity, irrespective of what's happening in the circumference of the hurricane that you call your day. Can you maintain that centeredness, to be in the center? And that's what meditation provides us. for us. So the Brahma Viharas is specifically the first of which, the Metta practice, which is the gateway, the first. It doesn't stay just Metta, by the way. It will change. It will move. It will transition. Loving kindness will move into compassion. Compassion will turn into this deep, altruistic, spiritual joy where your happiness is identifiable, inseparable from mine, and mine from yours. And then upekkha, which is preparing the ground for the mind to attain nibbana. Without it, it's impossible to attain nibbana. Without that sense of quietude, a pure, beautiful, balanced state of unshakability. Use the Dhamma wisely. Many before us have tread upon this path successfully and achieved the goal successfully in one lifetime. As it says in the Dhamma, dittheva dhamme, in this very birth. So may you accomplish the highest of goals in this very birth.